Okay, well, let's get started. And welcome, everyone. I hope everyone is safe and not breathing in too much smoke. Um, Depends on your location, I know, and depends on the time of day. So in Winnipeg, we get lots. We've been having lots of smoke, but not nearly as bad as the northern folks. Okay, I'm going to start. I'm going to do the land acknowledgement today. And I spoke with a number of Indigenous folks who said it was more than proper for a non-Indigenous person to do the acknowledgement. So I'm going to do that. 10 years ago, in 2015, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission released their report. Many of its 94 calls for action have been worked on, but only 12 have been completed. We need to push for faster action on these calls. Much of this country, we call Canada, was home to nations that signed treaties, while some parts are still unceded. Where I live in Winnipeg, we are located on Treaty 1 and on the ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Anishinaabe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and in the homeland of the Red River Métis Nation. I'd like to also take this moment to acknowledge Treaty 3 territory, where Shoal Lake lives, and that supply our precious sacred water. We acknowledge our responsibility to these people and a responsibility to adhere to their many teachings, particularly those that protect our precious land. We offer our respect and gratitude to the traditional caretakers of this land, for we are all treaty people. Okay, now I'm going to get Nick DiCarlo to speak about what's happening at the national level.
Okay, thank you, Pat. So it's hard to remember where we were at in the last meeting compared to this one, but just quickly to review, um, we all know about the fires that are burning across the country, and it looks like it's going to be as bad as 2023. Uh, we don't know for sure yet. There's a real possibility, and we know that it's going to get worse in the time to come. We're facing a situation of where Canada is choosing which path it's going to take in terms of the direction to solve the issue of sovereignty or not, and whether it's going to be pipelines and gas and oil or whether it's going to be something else. And we're facing that in these times. And we've successfully organized two major actions, October 1st of last year, and then the Earth Day events. And this time, on September 20th, we're going to be joining with others around the world and others in Canada, along with 350 and Climate Action Network, to join a global initiative. And we want to get as many people as possible on the streets. So it's different than our other actions in the past, and the situation is different in different locations. Slightly different focus, but a very important one given the way the world is going and given the need to build the broadest possible movement. And I'm going to introduce Atya Jafar, who is here from the 350. And Atya is going to tell us a bit about what's been happening internationally and what 350 has been organizing and preparing to do. We are going to be working with 350 and with Climate Action Network and with others if we can, as they join us, and to build the broadest possible coalition going forward. Uh, uh, and again, like we want to, this has got to be a day when we bring people in the streets and we make it known across the country and around the world how important these issues are and how strongly we stand behind them. So I'm going to introduce Atya, who joined 350 in 2014. She's a climate justice activist and migrant from Pakistan whose growing interest is in organizing that centers climate change impacts and migrant rights. And by the age of 12, she had lived in 4 different countries. She says her childhood memories of the rich landscapes of South Asia, Turkey, west coast of Turtle Island are vivid in her mind and in her heart. And while they are always carry with them a sense of nostalgic warmth, they also invoke sadness. As an adult, she has watched as massive floods, deadly heat waves, declining air quality, raging wildfires devastate all the places she's called home. And the love for these places and the people that live there is what her determination and commitment in the fight against climate change and corporate greed. So it motivates Atya. Atya, please. Go ahead.
Wow, thank you. That's such a nice introduction, and I haven't heard those words in a long time. Nick, you did some research. That's really lovely. I think I wrote that maybe 10 years ago. So it's
Mhm.
nice to hear again and to be grounded in why we're fighting. Yeah, really honored to be here, and I'm a big fan of Seniors for Climate. You all do some really amazing work. So really, really appreciate you holding space and inviting me into your space. And I am determined to make sure I make the best use of this time. So I do have a presentation that actually Amara has prepared for me because Amara has been the contact with Seniors for Climate, and I'm stepping in with her for her today. I'll go through the slides, but Nick, it would be really great if you could let me know when I maybe like I have 2 minutes left and 1 minute left, just so I'm not going over my 5 minutes. And I really do want to make
Sure.
time for
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah.
All right, great. So September 20th, a National Day of Action to draw the line and call on world leaders to pick a path. So I think everyone's aware that this is part of a global climate mobilization led by groups like Climate Action Network International, 350.org Global, and the Global Campaign to Demand Climate Justice. And in the US, it's lining up with the Third Act's Sunday as well. In Canada, I think it's quite relevant to recognize that this falls around the same time that Parliament returns, and there's a budget that will be introduced by the new Carney government. Also, it falls at a really important time. So I think many of us have been following last week. Bill C5 was introduced in Parliament. It's legislation that would just basically open up the door for new pipelines and really undermine Indigenous rights and democratic process and environmental protections. And of course, as has been mentioned already, we're seeing climate disasters. We're breathing in wildfire smoke as the affordability crisis continues to get worse and inequality is mounting. So we're at a crossroads, and we need to make sure that Carney knows that his next steps will define Canada's path. And we must force the choice in the right direction because we know that fossil fuel companies and all of our enemies are lining up at his doorstep to push him in the direction that they want him to go in. So our response, we are participating as a movement in Canada, in this global day of action with a flagship action on Parliament Hill with murals, music, and demands. The goal is to make the Ottawa action really the biggest and boldest of the country. And also there would be hundreds of distributed actions across the country. That would have a shared identity toolkit, visuals, that kind of thing. We want to make sure that there's a unified coalition of different actors, including, not the usual suspects. So across sectors, unions, seniors, youth, artists, housing advocates, and more. And we want to put forward a progressive populist message for care, clean energy, and public investment that actually also like aligns with a lot of the anxiety that people are feeling right now around nation building and feeling the threat of US aggression. So how does this make an impact? We're bringing national pressure to a global fight ahead of COP30, and COP30 is a really important moment for the Global Day of Action. We've talked about how Carney is walking a tightrope, balancing public legitimacy and also the fossil fuels. The companies are at his doorstep, and we need to make sure that he is on the right side of history. We will be a visible vocal coalition that makes fossil fuel expansion politically toxic. So I think a lot of you have seen pipelines are just on the agenda again, and the public is just falling for this myth that we need pipelines to build our future, and that's just untrue. So it's really important to make sure that we're toxifying the fossil fuel industry We're bringing forward media, visuals, and trusted messengers to force a public choice. It's either fossil fueled austerity or a just livable future. And we want to build lasting power and trust, and fuel the fight for for future fights and real wins, to really build up our movement, especially because we've seen some lulls recently. What we're demanding, it's a yes, no, I think, on different fronts. So it's a yes for federal investment in the solutions that we need, which is affordable, resilient housing, but no to things like housing as a profit machine for developers and spectators. It's yes to an east-west clean energy grid, but it's no to fossil fuels and pipelines that burn our planet and chain us to a dying industry. It's yes to taxing mega corporations and no to gutting public services that people rely on. Yes to following Indigenous leadership and no to trampling on Indigenous rights and consent, which is what Bill C5, for example, puts us in danger of doing. So this is a public reckoning. We're forcing Carney to pick the right side. Yeah, we're the messaging. So this is, I'm sure a lot of folks have thoughts on demands. These are not the finalized demands, but this is kind of the direction we're going. And it's inspired by broad calls to action and what the movement has already been demanding. So things like the Elbows Up for Climate campaign, which is really cool. And a lot of municipal leaders have signed on, including in a lot of the cities that I see folks are here from. And All of Us is also another campaign. And I can post links for those as well in the chat later if that's helpful. So some core elements. So the flagship Ottawa action will have a massive street mural. There will be a concert and a rally. There will be some high profile voices speaking, and there will be a demand delivery at Parliament. So the demands that we've spoken to, like a version of that will be delivered to decision makers in Ottawa. And for the distributed actions everywhere, I think similar, like like having some sort of visual consistency in terms of the messaging, in terms of the visuals. We'll have small grants available to actions that are happening everywhere to help fund them. We'll have some toolkits. Some things that we're thinking about are block parties and stencils and teach-ins, just so it's a vibe that brings in people that wouldn't necessarily come to a protest, but who are curious and are concerned about their kids' future. So really creating an accessible environment to bring in new folks, and inviting spaces for local cross-sector leadership. So I know I was talking to Nick earlier today, and it looks like Toronto's already getting the ball rolling on this, which is very, very exciting, as I'm sure other places are as well. And there's a brief that I can link, or that maybe has already been shared with you, that speaks to this more, in more detail. So this is the rough timeline. So June is when we're aligning with partners and preparing for July to September, which will be the big push. July 8th will be the organizing kickoff call, which you can RSVP for. So Amara was like, this is like a really cool. You will be the first to learn about this. So this is so I'll make sure that you get this. I'm going to share these slides as well. So all of these links that are here, you'll be able to click on them. Sorry, did someone have a question?
Sorry, you should go ahead, Amara. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I'll keep going. Okay. Yeah. So there will be a call where we'll share we'll share some more information. And there's also a partner endorser sign up form that is going to be circulated, and I'll share that as well, that you can sign up on, if you're interested in taking the lead or partnering as an organization. July to September, we'll have the toolkit launch, trainings, lead up events, mini grants. So a lot of art builds will be happening. And also mid-July, like around July, that's where we're expecting the website to go live as well, globally, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's essentially just like having the map of actions happening globally that will be live around then. Early September, we're hoping that, oh yeah, so this is what we were talking about, a Seniors for Climate and 350 mass organizing call to recruit participants and get more events on the map. So that seems like that's something that's on our radar. I know some folks were asking about that earlier. And Parliament returns September 15th, right before the Day of Action. So it's very opportune politically with that regard. September 20th is when the Day of Action will happen. And post September 20th, it'll be really important to think about, if we are bringing new people in, how do we absorb them and how do we kind of activate them, especially ahead of this federal budget that we are expecting in the fall that will likely happen after the action. Oh, this is what the endorsement form looks like that will be circulated. I accidentally clicked on it. But there you go. Okay, how you can plug in. You can endorse the mobilization, so add your name or group to publicly support the Day of Action and encourage your members to take part in it. You can partner on the mobilization, which means you can help organize or host local actions. You can mobilize for Ottawa, so bring a contingent to the flagship event in the capital city. And by filling out this form, you can let us know. So, for example, if you choose to mobilize for Ottawa, like for example, you're in Kingston, you want to bring a bus, we will be able to support the process for like setting up buses and that kind of thing, and funding them with some mini grants as well. And then you can also support with comms, media, or art. So if you're artistically inclined, you can help shape the kind of visual elements of this, because a lot of the story that we tell is through our visuals, and that's how we really broadcast the beauty of our movement. So if you're interested in contributing creative capacity, you can let us know as well. We're really hoping Seniors for Climate chapters will partner and help organize local actions across the country. We've heard that's something that there's already interest in doing, and also support with bringing folks to Ottawa. So, for example, I'm in Vancouver. I will not be able to come to Ottawa, so I look forward to a local event here. But for those of you that are close by, maybe that's something that you're considering. If you have questions, please do note Amara's email, because she is the point person. She's both in the global conversations and the national partner conversations, lots of time on Zoom, but also that means she has a lot of information that I probably don't have. So actually, she's in meetings right now in Montreal. So yeah, please do note this email if you have any questions. And I do want to share particularly I'll share the link to this endorser form where you can start already kind of indicating your support. Okay, I can maybe pause now for discussion.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to go to some questions. You might want to, yeah, okay, that's great. So first, some questions of Atia in terms of what's being planned at the 350 level, and then we need to talk a bit about how it applies to what we're doing, and look at that a bit more. Melissa, is it a question?
Yeah, just a quick question. Are you going to be using Slack to help organize this time around as well?
That's a good question. Is that a question for Seniors for Climate or 350?
No,
No,
so
350. That'd be a 350 question.
Okay, yeah, I think that that's a really good question. We haven't decided which platform to use yet, but recently we have moved to WhatsApp communities, which I'm not sure if you have used before, but it's kind of similar to Slack in that it has like a bunch of nested chats that are topical, but there's also channels for making announcements. And we found that we've had higher engagement with WhatsApp, so we might be creating something on WhatsApp instead. But yeah, but if not, then probably the fallback will be Slack. But did you find it useful last time to be on Slack?
Yeah, I used it for the heat pumps for all. I was part of that, and yeah, I thought it was very useful. It was a great way to get in touch with you guys really quickly. I thought the response was great, and yeah, it was easy, and to find the other leaders as well, and to communicate with smaller groups.
Okay, that's great. Oh, and thank you for participating in that campaign. That's so awesome. Yeah, it was so bumping during the Heat Pumps for All era. So right now we're on WhatsApp communities, but yeah, but I think we'll have one way or the other, we'll achieve those things that you're saying. We're helpful on Slack.
cool. Lydia?
Yes, I had a question regarding the small grants that you mentioned. What will the application process look like?
Hopefully very simple and very clear. So we've just very exciting, like kind of been able to secure some funding to be able to offer mini grants. So that's very, very exciting. And I think now we're just figuring out what's the most seamless process through which people can basically apply for grants. But I think that the first step would be to make sure that you are filling out this form to let us know that you're interested in leading a local action, because then we'll kind of know who the local action leaders are. And hopefully it's just like a matter of us reaching out to them to be like, hey, do you need funding? Instead of asking you to like fill out multiple different forms. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Any other question? Oh, Pat.
Yeah, just so you know, we are still going to have the map on the Seniors for Climate site. So I know it's a duplicate of effort, but if you could make sure you send us the information as well, so we maintain that map.
Yeah, that sounds good. We can definitely do that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the organizers could do that too. They could send them directly, and we'll cooperate and
Yeah, we'll figure out. So you would want a download of all of the events that are on our map, so you can also put them on your map, kind of thing. We can definitely
Well,
look into.
or maybe we can do it the other way. We'll talk about that later.
Great. Okay, sounds good.
Okay, Avril?
Hi, Atya. Thanks so much for the update on what 350.org is organizing. It looks amazing. I have a question about the relationship between what's being organized here in Canada and what is being organized that weekend internationally. And in addition, I'm particularly interested in the American organization that will then take place on the Sunday, which is September 21st. And through that or that body, and maybe you can speak just a little bit about that so we understand our place in our small place in relation to the much bigger places.
Yes.
Thanks.
So Draw the Line is the global frame, and there's various different regions across the world that are running with it. I think in the US, Sunday was kind of announced much earlier than Draw the Line was. So a lot of groups are running with that instead. So in the US, I think there's definitely coordination between the two parties to make sure that there are not competing events in the same places. And I don't know yet if like maybe the Sunday events will be displayed on our map as well. So to direct people there in their locations, we're not directing them to alternative events. So I hope that answers your question. But Third Act, Bill McKibben, he was a founder of 350, so we are in communication and have that relationship. Yeah, actually, like Draw the Line is project managed on the 350 side by a different co-founder of 350. So I hope they founded 350 together. So hopefully they know how to talk to each other.
And just a quick follow-up then, outside of North America, are you familiar with the relationship there?
Yeah, so outside of North America, I mean it's various different so like in Canada, we're working with you guys and we're working with other kind of regional partners. It's the same in other regions and other countries as well. But we do have like there's a global coalition space and then there's spaces within 350 where staff from different countries talk to each other. So I don't know exactly what the plans are, but I know that the Europe team has been very busy with what they're doing. And I know that the Latin America team has their own plans. And so, yeah, I think there's just like different things happening in different places and the ball is rolling. And hopefully we'll have more visibility on that once the global site is ready. And I think that 350 is working on more of a placeholder website before the coalition site is ready. So that should hopefully be ready earlier, maybe hopefully even in June. And that will hopefully tell more of the global story. I think something that 350 is really taking responsibility for globally is telling that global story and like making sure that it's clear to political decision makers that this is a global moment. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and that it's all happening on that weekend, right?
Yes, September
Gotcha.
20th. Yeah.
And
Yes.
it's connected also with Fridays for Future?
I don't know. So I think Fridays for Future, it like potentially in different regions and different places, it's different. So I think there's no like for example in Ottawa, I think Fridays for Future might have an event on the 27th. So I think it's just really up to us in the different places that we're in to bring in Fridays for Future groups that we're connected with and see if we can collaborate and have kind of more impact together.
I think
Yeah,
Rolly
so-
has some info on Ottawa.
Oh yeah, great.
Rolly?
Rolly would know more.
And I think I'm next anyways. Thanks for that presentation, Atia, because I think those slides are very useful. Would I be able to use those slides tomorrow evening? Or I think Katie Perfect, who's going to be working with the Ottawa group, might be at our meeting tomorrow evening. And we'd like, when I say tomorrow evening, talking about the Ottawa Organizers Meeting tomorrow evening. And the organization in Ottawa does include Fridays for Future. Now we're all on the same page on the same day on the 20th. So that'll be a larger organizing force in Ottawa. And I think those slides are very clear and they give us a really good picture of what's coming down. There's a lot of details, as you say, to add in there, but so we're able to use these slides going forward, right?
Yes, totally. I can't take credit for the slides because Amara made them and she did a great job. I agree, but you can absolutely use them. I put the slide link in the chat, Rolly.
Cool. Okay.
And anyone, yeah, you're welcome to use them and click through them. Yeah.
The other question you mentioned, like, which will do an event, an action on the 20th. Now, we're kind of hoping to have 100 locations. We had 76 last year for October 1. And if we get 100 locations, I'm just wondering if we're going to be trying to draw from the same locations. I guess we're going to have to coordinate that. And maybe it's as simple as sharing map information. I don't know.
Yeah.
And, I don't want there to be confusion between when people are registered, do they need to know, do they need to register in both places? Like, we're going to have to do a little bit of, clean up the logistics around that, I think. It's just a question mark right now.
So if I can just
Yeah.
follow up on that, because I want to take the discussion a bit to the coordination between 350 Seniors for Climate and other groups. And because this is a different organizing situation than we've had before.
Mhm.
So one thing is we want to be able to do is build coalitions wherever we can. And so that means in some, especially in major centers, there'll be a lot of other organizations and groups we'll want to build coalitions with in cooperation with 350 Climate Action Network and hopefully other of the major, it's like cross Canada organizations. So that's one part of it. We also have to decide in some locations if we want to go to a central one. So for example, in Ottawa, if there's people around Ottawa and Perth and other places, they may want to go to Ottawa. So that's another thing that's different than we've done in the past. And then finally, there'll be groups that are in smaller locations where they're going to organize primarily on their own, and they're going to have to, figure out how to tie in. And there's various ideas that came up in some of the discussions we've had. So it's going to be a bit of an evolving situation to make this work to the best situation. My understanding is that 350 will be calling to get the timelines of, like you show the timeline, early September mass organizing call. I took it to be there was going to be some kind of meeting in July of various major organizations to try and get them together to coordinate as much as we possibly can. I think that would be good if we can do that. But let's talk a bit about what questions people have about where they fit into this picture, which is complicated but important. So I'll have to take the discussion there. Susan, speak to whatever you want to speak to. I just want to try and get to that discussion a bit. Go ahead, Susan.
My turn? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am just, as I said at the earlier meeting of SCAN today, kind of disappointed that you had mentioned also that you were in touch with the Sunday organization and those people. So why didn't you just stick to the same days they were using? Like, why did you choose a different day?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Sunday is the mobilization, as many of you know, in the US that was announced. That was announced quite a long time ago. For 350 Global, we were bringing together a global coalition of global partners, some of the groups that I named earlier, including CAN International. And in some meetings with partners, the initial proposal was for us to have a global mobilization and to basically coordinate a global coalition in support of Sunday. But the global partners did not like the Sunday message as much. They didn't think that it was as clearly meeting the moment, especially at a time of climate disaster and as we're seeing the rise of fascism, they wanted something that was more direct, more firm, and so Draw the Line kind of spoke to that a bit more than Sunday. So yeah, that's my understanding is there was just a breakdown in terms of what the global partners were ready to support, and so that's why we found a different direction that felt more aligned with where the global partners were at.
And you've done some work with Indigenous people globally as well, Ate, I believe, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, 350 is definitely different regions have different partnerships and connections with different Indigenous rights organizations, and one of the global partners is the Global Campaign to Demand Climate Justice. So yeah, I think that does bring together definitely more of a racialized and Indigenous kind of groups together as well, and voices together as well. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Letitia?
Thanks. Yes, this might seem like a small detail, but we had our organizing meeting last Wednesday when we were able to convince the Fridays for Future people who have traditionally organized the global climate strike successfully for many years. So they've agreed to do it on the 20th with us. But the sticking point is that Parliament Hill is a no-go these days. It is a disaster area because of construction, and there's even construction on Metcalf, which makes like getting up to the hill even not like it's just a no-go. So our main issue right now is to pick a better location for something like that. So just so you know.
Wow, that's huge. That's a great win. Congrats on connecting with Fridays for Future. And I love the intergenerational alliance. That's awesome. I'm glad you did that. And yeah, I mean, that sounds very difficult logistically. So great that you're thinking through a different location. And you'll be in this meeting with Rolly tomorrow as well in Ottawa.
Yeah.
Then?
Yeah.
Great. That sounds lovely. Well, let us know how it goes.
Okay.
Thank
David?
you.
Ataya, thanks for the presentation, and thanks to 350.org for doing all of this background organizing for this day. And I think it's great that we're at the threshold of trying to build a Trans-Canada coalition around this. And so I'm really encouraged by this. I just had a question, though, about that 350.org's capacity on the ground. That, I know of all the great work that you do at a national level and the resources and toolkits and everything else. But I'm trying to think that Seniors for Climate, we've said, our goal is 100 locations for the September 20th. How many chapters do you have, active chapters in Canada?
Yeah, I think that is a great question. Yeah, I think it's been a little bit challenging because 350, we don't have a chapter system the same way that Council of Canadians does, for example. We have a local group system that actually predates even the Canada team existing. So before any staff were hired in Canada, local groups were created in Canada and they were created as separate organizations. So even in the US, each local group is its own organization. They're registered and they have their own staff at times as well. And so the local groups are quite a bit autonomous. So we work with local groups the same way that we work with different local organizations, whether or not they have 350 in the name. So local groups are our partners. They're not like our chapters. So we have a partnership with, we partner with 350 Toronto, for example, the same way that we partner with Climate Justice Edmonton. I'd say that we probably have a network of about 15 local groups, but we also have different local organizers. We're actually finding this is a very interesting time where we are finding a lot of people that are like emerging, that are maybe not ready to have their own autonomous group, but they're emerging as organizers. And we're also trying to grow that network of local groups that we're in partnership as well. So so I think that's like a really it's an evolving question, but we do definitely have some local capacity, and also often for days of action, we're able to mobilize new capacity. So we're also able to encourage people that maybe have never organized something before to take action in their communities and organize something for the very first time. And that's something that we can support them with doing. I think we definitely follow that model of supporting distributed leadership, whether that means partnering with existing groups or helping build new capacity as well.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And that raises the question of where on the ground, what's going to be happening. And I think that's important for us to consider. So what are we doing in each of our locations? And as I said, there's different possibilities. In the larger centers, I think we have to move to start creating those coalitions. So we now have that letter the sign-up letter you mentioned there, Atia, you showed on the screen. We can use that to announce the event and to try and get other organizations, because we have to announce it. We have to, as much as possible, it's not just us organizing events this time around, in many locations. Some of us are going to have to decide whether we're going to go to a central location or not, in particular around Ottawa, but people may want to do that in other locations as well, depending how things evolve. And then we have to figure out in locations where we don't have partners to work with, how we, make sure that we build on what's happening. So one of the discussions we had in a brainstorming session is an image that could be done. You could use the idea of draw the line. You could have a line across the Trans-Canada Highway of smaller groups organizing along the Trans-Canada Highway as part of the day. You know, there's different ideas that we need to talk about how we both work with and in a coalition and a broader coalition, but also adapt to each situation to, you know, where we are, how we do it most effectively. And we're going to have to do a bit of work on that, and people are going to have to be fairly creative. You're going to have to ask yourselves that question. It'd be important that if people bring up their questions in this discussion about that in your location, how do you see what some of the issues may be, and how does it relate to this general call? So we'll be working with 350. We'll be working with Climate Action Network centrally, but when it gets to the ground, that's a whole other matter that we have to sort through. Louise?
Yeah, well, that's a good segue to my question, because it would have helped if we maybe had Climate Action Network here as well, or if we organized to have them at a subsequent call and as soon as we can, because of course they've got 150 members. And so, you know, for example, in New Brunswick today, I emailed Conservation Council to say, okay, are you part of the Draw the Line? Because they're a member of Climate Action Network. So I'm assuming they're going to be getting the information and making some choices so that we can start to set up a bit of a coordinating committee. I mean, I think it would be handy if we had a list shared with Seniors for Climate organizers as soon as possible of the local groups that 350 has and the members that CanRAC has, so that seniors groups in those locations, if they don't already have an established relationship with those groups, can reach out where they overlap in the same place, so we can build a bit of a relationship, but also some coordinating activities. So we're having a planning session next week. You know, I want to make sure that the CanRAC folks or the 350 folks that may be in our area are on the call. So, but I don't have a full list yet.
Yeah, and we have to
That
move.
would be helpful.
Yeah, we have to move quickly on that,
Mhm.
quickly as possible.
Yeah, so if we could get a list, if that would be really helpful.
Yeah, so I think that is the intention of the form, is to circulate it to the CanRAC list, to circulate it to the 350 groups, and to see, okay, who is raising their hand for their group to participate. And so if they are raising their hand for their group to participate, then we will definitely make sure that everyone who fills out that form is connected to the other groups that have raised their hand. So that's the value of the form. And also the organizing call on July 8th, I just shared the Zoom once again. That one will be hosted by CanRAC. So if you have questions specifically for them, really encourage you to sign up for that one. And yeah, and I'll post the endorser form again as well, because the endorser form is where we're, yeah, exactly, like where we're building that list of who are the local groups that are interested in taking the lead in different places.
So what in the discussion we had with Elizabeth Amara, in various situations, we're going to have to take the initiative, and there may be groups that come online after the fact, and then we'll have to. We can't wait until, you know, the groups show up. We have to take some initiative, get things happening, and then if the groups show up, then they'll join in whatever initiative's been taken. But at the same time, the sooner we can have a meeting with broader, you know, at the broader, you know, cross-Canada level, or meeting of the information of who's organizing what where, the better, because then we can do things together more effectively. So, you know, it's the nature of the situation we're in. We've got to move very quickly. We don't have a lot of time. We're going into the summer. It is a slow process to get a global movement happening. Can't happen just like, you know, snap your fingers and it happens. So we're going to have to, you know, work with that. And again, questions that people have here about how they fit into that, it'd be important to bring that up, or certainly after the meeting, if you don't bring it up here. We're going to have an after chat too. We may talk about it there as well. Letitia, and then Brian. Well, maybe I'll go to Brian.
But before that, just a minute, Nick.
Oh.
Next thing on the agenda actually is fall events. So not necessarily with 350, but what's sort of happening in your neighborhood, what's happening in your area. So we certainly can have 350 questions involved, but also, you know, thoughts on what about the fall, what you're doing in your area, that sort of thing. Okay, Letitia from Ottawa.
For the endorser form, would the coordinating committee in Ottawa fill that out, like one form, or would all the groups involved in the coalition fill it out? each one separately. I'm not sure what the
Yeah,
endorser
I
form
think
is
this is
for.
This is a good question. I think it's more so if you're not already on the radar of organizers, this is a good
Okay.
form to fill out. So I feel like Letitia, you already have the connection to the Ottawa organizers and you're already in the fold there. So you
Right.
don't need to be connected to the Ottawa folks, right? That's
Okay.
basically what we'd be doing is we'd be connecting you to other
But
local.
we want to know about other groups that put up their
Exactly.
hand. About the mural, you
Mhm.
talked about a mural for Ottawa, and CanRac, Lauren talked to us about that too. And what kind of support is 350 willing to give locally in Ottawa for this big mural project?
So we don't have any staff in Ottawa. However, we applied for joint funding with CanRac and we absorbed the funding for distributed events, so micro grants for distributed events. And CanRac, I believe, absorbed the funding for the Ottawa action. So they hold the budget for that. And I think they have hired Katie Parfit to coordinate that action. Katie used to be on my team at 350, but now she was working for CanRac. So actually I know so little about Ottawa and probably Rolly would know more. Than I would.
Okay, no, that's good. I'm glad that Katie's been hired. I've known her a long time too.
Yeah,
That's great.
She's great. I'm so jealous of anyone who can support her.
Brian?
Yeah.
You're on mute, Brian.
Thank you. I'm sure this has been considered, but I have to ask it. September 8th is a dangerously close date to September 20th. Has that date been determined to be the earliest you could possibly have it?
Sorry.
That's the date you're calling people to join. And that's pretty darn late, seems to me, for the September 20th event.
Oh, I see. So, sorry, you got cut off for a second there, but you're referring to September 8th. Yeah,
I don't have your slides in front of me, but my understanding is that you're calling followers to join on September 8th. And I'm saying, is that early enough?
Right. So it says on the slides early September. I don't know if a date has been determined yet, but that wouldn't be the first time that people hear about it. I think we will start recruiting earlier than that for sure, but this would just be like a hype call type thing. So it would just be kind of a way to like build momentum and like, go like a little bit rah rah rah. So yeah, I'll note the fact that like, yeah, maybe you think even that could happen earlier, but there is something about September, right, with back to school and Labor Day. It's like you do want to wait a little bit for people to settle back in after the summer, and then you kind of tell them about what's happening in the fall. So definitely noting that we should strike that balance.
Anne?
Hi, I have a question about the slogan, draw the line. In fact, I have a question probably about all slogans. In the area that I'm in, it's hard enough to just say we're having a rally about the need for climate action and get people to pay some attention. If you start using euphemisms, then it becomes harder. So I'm wondering, I actually thought that the information that was sent out by Seniors for Climate that had a fairly polite and respectful short comment about, wanting the new prime minister to pick a side. That's something that could work a lot better in our area. And I'm wondering if any other people have the same kind of challenges with metaphors, slogans that are metaphors and that sort of thing. It just doesn't work here. And what kind of leeway there is, and whether or not there could be resources that actually highlight that particular question. Because in our area, and possibly in other smaller population areas, people aren't as intensely political as they might be, as our allies might be in urban settings. And and the other thing is that there is a lot of polarization, and a lot of people are already making major assumptions about what Carney is going to do or isn't going to do. And he just looks to me like a guy that plays his cards really close to his chest, and I'd never want to play poker with him. But he has historically been a climate activist. So I'm just interested, like, what leeway there is and how Seniors for Climate might work with something that doesn't build into the rage and that is very clear language.
Yeah, I think you know your people well, and I think there's a message that we have like that creates a consistent message for media and the storytelling that we do to say, 100 communities drawing the line. Like it's kind of helpful to like have some sort of consistency. But in terms of how you bring people into the fold, you know your communities best. And so if you think it's better to say, oh, like you're invited to a street mural or you're invited to an action where we push Carney to choose a side, I think it's really up to you what kind of messaging you want to use to bring people into the fold and to promote the event. And I think I think definitely trust your leadership on that. But it's really hard for us to develop materials on our end that say like 20 different things. So our materials will kind of say one thing, but if you think that you want to adapt things for your context, that I think that makes sense for sure. Definitely makes sense to bring people in.
Muriel?
Yeah, hi. I'm in a small town in rural New Brunswick. So I will have to make a decision as to whether we do a small action here in our small town or whether we join up with a larger center and make a bigger impact. So what I would like to know is what criteria should I use to make that decision? Does Seniors for Climate have a target that they want so many actions across the country? Or is it more important to get media coverage, which is what would happen if we join together into a larger center, for instance? So what should we keep in mind when we decide whether we do an action in our little town or whether we get together with a larger
That's a
center?
very good question, and I don't know if we have an answer. Rolly.
Well, I think it'll be up to each area, each community to decide that. I mean, last year when we organized October 1, of course, we wanted to get as many locations as possible. This year, there seems to be an emphasis on numbers, but locations will be important too. If I were to say, if I had to make a choice between getting more, like bigger numbers or more locations, I would probably go for the numbers this year. As you said, maybe for media coverage and certainly getting more feet on the ground. But that said, some centers are so far from larger centers that they'll want to do their own thing. So I don't think that as a firm decision we can provide direction on. I think it'll be up to each location. I'm not sure who was speaking this far. And the other point I wanted to make about, I think it was Anne who mentioned that draw the line and pick a path. I see tremendous flexibility in those two, in that logo, because in fact there was an event on Parliament Hill not too long ago, someone alluded to it, where Prime Minister Carney was asked to pick a path and go to the left and go to the right. It was a fork in the road. So the draw the line, pick a path symbol, I think, is very strong in many, many different ways.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's more of a, discretionary choice. Yeah.
Okay, Doug. You're on mute, Doug.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can't help but think that a man like Carney is in a tough position right now, and it behooves us to kind of pay some attention to that. The one thing for sure is that Canada itself is in something of an existential crisis. He's going to have to balance jobs, careers, and the financial stability of the whole nation in a dance that I certainly wouldn't envy. And I hope we're paying attention to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think there's a dance happening, but unfortunately, certain industries have a whole lot of money and they're pushing very hard. Dave?
Just speaking to Muriel's point. So for our Earth Day, we had 59 locations. Those 59 locations included all of the locations in New Brunswick that had met at the Fredericton legislature. So in terms of counting, hey, if you have one big one, and I will point out, maybe not everyone here knows this, but as a result of the coverage that the Fredericton action had, we had an interview arranged with Rosie Barton on national TV. And unfortunately, the tragedy in Vancouver precluded that. We're hoping that it's going to be rescheduled, but yeah, we got some fantastic press out of that coverage.
Yes, so I would think that locations, even if they decide to go to a large, should let us know. And we can make a note that you're going to the larger, on the map, that you're going to the larger organization, organized event, but we still will count. I think we can still count. So it depends what's happening in Fredericton, I guess. Okay,
Yeah,
please.
yeah, I think you could have like something like the carpool or the bus that's going to the big action is on the map if that's what you decide. Also,
Yeah.
good to see you, David. Hi. I think we met a couple months ago.
Louise?
Yeah, I just wanted, I mean, we don't have to resolve it now because given who's all on the call, we could spend the next 5 hours talking about what we think of the current political situation. But I wanted to just kind of park or perhaps, give ourselves permission here to have a more nuanced view as elders with some wisdom and experience. Not everyone necessarily has to be um, uh, hardcore in terms of draw the line. I also happen to be someone who thinks that the better line would be call their bluff, which is what I think actually that Carney is doing. I think he's actually calling the fossil fuel companies bluff, and that he knows darn well they can't capture and store the bullshit that they think they can capture and store. And so, I think he's got a job as prime minister to keep the country together, and I think he's calling their bluff. And I don't think there's anything wrong with us saying that. I happily want to call out fossil fuel companies and call their bluff, and I think that can be part of our Seniors for Climate messaging, that we contribute to the Draw the Line campaign. Like I think we can do that. My particular approach to the political side would be actually to give Carney more room, rather than back him into a corner. But that's just how I come at these kinds of things. And so maybe there's a contribution we can make to this that is helpful. Anyway, just thought I'd throw that in because I'm kind of obsessed with all of this these days and spend way too much time watching Question Period every day.
Okay, a couple more questions and then we need to move on. Ron?
Yeah, thanks. I live on Denman Island, a small island, 1,400 people. We can have a little action here, but I don't know that it's going to accomplish anything. I think we want to reach out to government because we want them to step up and draw the line with the oil and gas people and so on. And the only way we do that is massive numbers, where they are. So, I mean, I would really vote for, amassing our numbers together as much as we can at legislative buildings.
Well, that's one approach, and letters are certainly another.
You're just going to keep going in and out.
Hi,
Lynn?
thank you. Yeah, just a quick question. I'm just wondering if 350 and SFC have chosen a poster to promote the event, if you've chosen a visual that we could all adopt and use in our events. Thank you.
Yes, this is something that we are waiting for global, but I also think that we are going to maybe abandon global a little bit and just make our own thing because it's taking quite a bit of time. And I know there's an eagerness to kind of get things out there. And I know that's what other regions are doing sometimes as well. So yeah. So hopefully very soon is the answer to that. I do have to go to pick up my kid from daycare. But it was so nice to see everyone. And just wanted to say hi to Barb and Lori and Tylene. I see some friends here, so just wanted to say hello. And thank you everyone for having me. It was so great to see you all.
Well, thank you so much for being here, and we'll certainly be in touch with Amara, and maybe we'll talk to you in the future.
Sounds great. Thanks so much. Thanks, Pat.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Nick, can you speak briefly on the there was a brainstorming session held, and Nick is going to give us an overview, and then we'll have a brief discussion, or we'll never get out of here today.
All right, so we had a meeting of, I think it was around 30 people, a brainstorming session. A number of ideas came up, about individual things that can happen in different places, and there were several ideas around common actions that we might do. One was, I mentioned already, was something along the Trans-Canada Highway, where every location would do something on that route, and that would become a concept. We talked about another possibility is transformers, images of transformers, just to indicate electrical grid across the country. There was the idea of doing a line around legislatures. That was another concept. There was singing for peace. So there is a global movement. It's actually on the Sunday where around the world there'll be groups gathering at 2 p.m. local time to sing choral songs. I guess that's the way you sing songs, is chorally. I don't know. At any rate, but to sing songs um, for peace. And so there's a possibility that people thought of doing that, having choruses that each group would organize some kind of chorus. There was the idea of bringing bells representing the climate emergency. That's something that's come up here before. There was, of course, the idea of a letter writing campaign. And we broached the idea of having a page on the website again, whether that would be useful where people would put in their things they're doing and other people could learn from that. At the end of the session, it was agreed that it would be a good idea to have another brainstorming session to get ideas from each other and talk things through, etc. So I guess that's one of the things we want to test here. We assume we should do it, but it'd be good to hear back if there's any issues regarding that.
All right. Are there any comments about the brainstorming or whether you'd be interested in the future? Well, if you think about it and want to, Nick is more than happy to take your information and talk to you about it. Yes, Brian.
I would like to say that brainstorming is always a good thing. So I would be very much in favor of brainstorming, and the earlier the better.
Okay. All right. If there's nobody else, something that's gone on the website is a fact sheet on climate change and wildfires. Studies have shown that the media is not doing a very good job of equating the fact that we've got all these wildfires to climate change. This fact sheet is an excellent piece that was put together by the Canadian Climate Institute. And it is on our website now under resources and key links. And here in Winnipeg, we sent it out to all our journalist contacts. And I actually ended up having an interview with the radio station the next day. So, and we got 3 thank yous from media people, which is almost unheard of for them to respond to emails. So this article, it's very, fact sheet is very well done, and it's totally has anecdotes. That's not the word. Anyway, it's got all the research attached to it. So it's fully referenced. There's, I don't know, 3 or 4 pages of references. So people, if they want to go and look at the actual research, can do that. And certainly, since 2008, let me read this. 6 times in 2023 were 6 times more than the historic average. And unfortunately, this year is probably going to be as bad. It's our new reality, but this is something that you might want to send to your local journalists, and it's a report them by giving them information that they can use if they choose, but at least it's giving them some background. So that, I just wanted to bring that to your attention. So it's under resources, under key links, and it's a fact sheet, climate change and wildfires. Now, Eric was going to talk about the website. There's also going to be an interim pamphlet on there. Because we're still waiting for 350 and information on Draw the Line, he's been working hard and put together an interim pamphlet that he was going to share. So go ahead, Eric.
Thank you, Pat. I'm just going to share my screen quickly to show this interim pamphlet. There's not too much to share about this, so I won't take too much of everyone's time. But as our previous guest mentioned, we're still waiting on certain materials from 350 as the global groups kind of agree on posters and items like that. So while we wait on kind of the graphics and some of the information, we need to have a finalized pamphlet to go out to everyone. We do have this interim pamphlet, similar to what we've done in the past, but it's kind of a useful thing in the meantime. If you feel like you need a material, if you haven't, sometimes people do small events before the main one, maybe a table at a farmer's market or something. So if you need just really a page-long fact sheet that gets into what Seniors for Climate is, includes some contact information at the top. This is kind of the thing to use for that. So, as Pat mentioned, it will be going out on the website fairly shortly. If you need it sooner, it's going to be going out in the post-meeting email. So, likely on Friday, early next week at the latest. We'll be sending this out with those other materials, so you'll be able to get it then. But so there'll be a few places to find this, but yeah, this is the kind of document you can use right now for promotion. And then once we get some of that updated imagery, updated language from 350, we're going to have a new pamphlet to use after that, and we're going to have a lot more. There will be a formal toolkit as there have been in past actions.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, thank you.
Dave was going to take a few minutes to talk. The steering committee and the coordinating team have been working hard discussing strategy. So Dave was going to give you a brief report on that.
Thank you, Pat. So yes, the steering committee and the coordinating committee have had some very intense and detailed discussions about the strategy going forward for Seniors for Climate. I will say that we have temporarily put that on hold. We're going to take it up again after the September action, but for now, absolutely nothing has changed. And I also wanted to mention that we have a outreach strategy that has been formulated, And I expect that you're going to be seeing some changes soon as a result of that, primarily through, I think, some of our social media. And that's all I have to say. I mean, we're not doing this alone. We will be coming back to the broader group here if we do formulate something to discuss it and get your feedback. So that's all I have to say for now, Pat.
Oh, thanks, Dave. Now, as you know, we've been calling ourselves a cross-country group because we haven't had any groups in Quebec. But Rolly and Louise have been working hard talking to folks there, and they're going to give you a brief update what's happening. Okay, Rolly?
Need to unmute myself. Yes, we may have shared before that we were having meetings with colleagues in Quebec, and we've had a few meetings with the large groups like Equiterre and Nature Québec and other smaller groups, always with good intentions, but for some reason, when we each got back to our own day job, so to speak, we just couldn't get that going the way we wanted to. And then Louise has a contact at the University of Sherbrooke. His name is Hugo Seguin. And Louise and I met with Hugo on, I think I have it here somewhere, I think it was May 27th, yes. And had a great discussion. Hugo is very well connected to the climate community in Quebec, knows some of the main organizers, who are the people we had been talking with anyways. But we came up through our discussion and agreed that the mobilization of seniors in Quebec ought to be coming from inside Quebec, ought to be coming organically and not something that we're doing in the rest of Canada or outside Quebec and asking them to join. It is similar to the approach that we are using with Indigenous communities, asking how we can help. Brian or others have mentioned, rather than saying, well, we're here to help and this is what we're doing. Do you want to help? Do you want to join in? It's the same approach in Quebec. During our discussion, we came up with some possible next steps, but what is being suggested by Hugo is that Louise and I attend you'll have to help me out with this, Louise. I think it's in the fall, and it's the equivalent to Climate in Ontario, and I think it's called Climate Communication Community of Practice in Quebec. I had to read that. And the acronym is COM Climat. And they organize an annual climate communication summit, and Louise and I are being invited to attend, and we have to decide on what format that will take. We have a form to fill out, and we'll be able to talk about who we are, what we do, why we're doing what we're doing. We'll be able to hopefully boast about two great events we've had this year, including the September 20th one, because we'll be meeting with them after that. And other possible steps we discussed were to have a Zoom meeting with the Quebec list that we have. We have a list of about, I think it's 107 from our 4,000 subscriber list, but 107 are from Quebec. But we've decided that Louise and I have decided that best to have this to attend this climate conference, communication summit in the fall, and go from there and basically look to 2026 to see how this is going to percolate up from within Quebec. Hugo believes, and I think Louise has some numbers to back that up, that the larger organizers in Quebec are kind of missing the boat by not mobilizing seniors, because they have a huge potential there as well. And for the most part, they're not being approached directly from within by Quebec organizers. So that's what's happening with that. And maybe Louise has something to add.
I'm not sure where Louise is. Louise, are you?
Okay.
Maybe she is gone.
Maybe. So, so there's more to come on that. Right now, it's making the application or filling out the form so that we can attend the climate summit in the fall.
Okay.
Okay.
So our first anniversary has officially passed, but did you want to speak
Yeah,
about some of the social media stuff?
sure. I don't know about the rest of you, but this first anniversary just kind of surprised me. It just came out of nowhere. I didn't realize it had been a year. And even though we probably ought to have, done a lot more, we were able at the last minute to get ask Jordan, who's our lead for social media, to do some posts, and which she did. She did some posts on our various platforms, but certainly on Instagram, on Facebook, and Blue Sky, and some pretty neat posts actually, where she celebrated digitally. We celebrated our 1 year anniversary, and there were photos, images from some of the events we had during the year. We just finished a bunch of activities during Earth Week, and so there were fresh photos for that, and there was a video that Christine Longoa did. I think Christine is here this evening, and it did very well. Some of us actually amplified those posts that Jordan worked on our own networks, and they got real good coverage. So we did celebrate the anniversary, and as I said, in retrospect, it would have been probably nice to have done a little bit more, but it just sneaked up on us. So that's what we did. I hope some of you did see those videos, those posts, and you can go back; they're still there, and take a peek.
Okay, thanks, Rolly.
Hey.
Now, at our last meeting, there was questions about
Oh yeah.
what's happening with the money. People are making donations. Where does this go? That kind of thing. What's happening with the finances? So I know you've pulled a few things together just to let us know.
Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do now. And it's going to show you a page with a bunch of charts and numbers. Is that large enough?
One size bigger might be better.
More? Okay, might be pretty big. Okay, so here we go. Yeah, so it's a lot of numbers, but don't be too alarmed. It was a good way to summarize what we did in 2024. So this is not the cash flow, but it shows, for example, in this part on the left, 2024 revenues. Those are all the revenues we had from different sources in 2024. The one that's highlighted in yellow is small change fund, and that gave us $22,000 in 2024. Now, those are the donations we make. When you go to the website and you click on the donate button, it takes you to the crowdfunding page, the small change fund crowdfunding page. You make a donation, and small change fund will issue a receipt. And the reason we do our donations that way is because we are not a charitable organization, Seniors for Climate, but Small Change Fund is, and we are a partner. And the amount in red is the 12% overhead, which it costs us to be affiliated with Small Change Fund. And for that, they provide some accounting services. They also provide, they issue receipts for donors, and provide some guidance also in setting up the page and running some fundraising campaigns and so on. So this is the amount that we raised last year through donations that you and I and others have made. So if you donate $100, for example, $88 goes into the Small Change Fund account that we have. These funds do not go in our own Alterna Savings Credit Union account. These are handled, and invoices go to Small Change Fund. They pay expenses, but they also receive the donations. Again, as I said, issue receipts. All these other amounts here from SCAN, Enviro Defense, Greener Grants, the Salal Foundation, David Suzuki, Melior is a foundation from the Netherlands, I believe, and Climate Legacy. our revenues for last year totaled $69,000. And we should be quite proud of that, because for our first year organization to come up with $69,000, I don't know, I think we did quite well there. Now, how did we spend our money, your money, and these dollars? They were spent, like, for example, the Salal Foundation. Some of the when you do a proposal for a foundation, you have to have a plan. So they look at how you implemented that plan. Did you reach your targets? Are you on the path to reaching your targets? So we have to comply with the conditions around the funding. So this is how our expenditures broke down last year: roughly $5,600 for website hosting and so on, admin support, social media support, $18,000, media and communications plan, $13,000. We had a video company last year that did the videos that we used for the promotion for the Day of Action. You'll remember the flags and the materials we provided and the shipping of those. E-transfers to each locations. We transferred $7,000 to the locations. So we spent $56,000. That means that we had a surplus last year of $13,000. And so the question might come up, well, if you made a surplus, if we had a surplus of $13,000, why didn't we spend more on e-transfers to locations, and why didn't we spend more on other? The thing is, the money doesn't always come in at the same time as the expenditures. Some of these monies, for example, $5,000 from the Salal Foundation didn't come in till December. So, I mean, it's nice to have a padding going forward. So we began 2025 with a surplus of $13,000. So that was 2024. 2025, again, looking at the, just a bit closer here. Okay, 2025. Do you still see that well on your page, or is it sideways?
Yes, it's fine, Rolly.
Fine, okay. Yeah, so a small change fund to date in 2025 is $9,000, almost $10,000. We've received $2,500 from Enviro Defense, and the Salal Foundation again this year approved our grant proposal and for $25,000. So for our revenues are registered or identifiable revenues for this year, $36,000. This is what we have to work with this year. Now, as I mentioned, we do have a proposal for funding with the Trotsky Family Foundation, and we're waiting for an answer in June. We really hope that this comes in, and of course, these numbers will change pretty radically if it comes in. Expenditures to date in 2025, we've spent so far $19,000. So we're still running, with a cash flow and a surplus, but our expenditures keep going up, and right now our revenues are frozen at 36 until we get more funding. And this amount here does go up a little bit each month, so there are monies coming in. So this year so far to date, this is, as I said, we spent this much on website, admin support, consultant, and so on. $13,269, $3,800 for flags and material. We've ordered more flags to get us up to 100 locations. We're hoping that those have been ordered and paid for. So that's the. I mean, the questions were like, when I make a donation, where does my money go? And those are good questions to ask, I think. And I hope this has provided some answers. And if there are questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Anne, you've got a question?
Yeah, my question is, what happened in 2025 to the surplus that we had in 2024? Where is it on the line?
Oh, it's not on the line. These are revenues. These are new revenues and new and expenditures for 2025. There's another chart here that's called cash flow, and it's all part of our cash flow. So that went into our 25. We began the year with $13,000 in the bank, but I could have put it there, but this just identifies this side here identifies the revenues we're getting in 2025 and the expenditures we're going to have against those revenues.
Okay, but basically, so far this year, we're operating from 49,000 something because of the surplus. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
And
that's another way of putting it. Yes,
we've spent 19,000 and change.
that's correct.
Yes.
Okay, that's
So
it.
our balance sheet is about,
20.
yeah, 29,000 or,
Yep, okay, I got it.
yeah.
Well, there's another chart here, but it only goes to the end of April because, well, there are accounting issues, not issues, but
No,
delays.
that's okay. I'm not
Okay.
questioning
Yeah, it
it.
hasn't disappeared. It's sitting as it's an asset on on our balance sheet,
Yeah.
which
Yep,
is
okay, thank you. Yep.
Other questions? I guess not.
Okay.
Now, we talked about our next meeting being July 8th, and that is the day that 350 is having their event. So I'm not sure. We'll say our next meeting is July 8th at 6:30. If there are, we may make adjustments depending what else is happening. Okay, now, is there any other business or anything that anyone would like to? We will go for another 5 minutes and then we'll go to an after chat. So if, yes, Luba.
Can everybody bug media about making the link, the obvious link? I mean, I've been doing it on Twitter to CBC. I don't know if anybody sees it or picks it up, but just to say, okay, tonight you reported on wildfires and the smoke, and okay, and you mentioned the drought and hot weather. Why don't you add the phrase because of climate change? You're a national broadcaster. Just add the phrase. So I'm wondering if other people, in your spare time, might want to do something like that. Just so they feel like, okay, people are watching, they're not happy with this siloed reporting, because they'll put their climate, and CBC in particular, they'll put their climate things over here and the news is over there, and never the twain shall meet. That's all.
Well, and today at a meeting, someone said it isn't haze, it's smoke. And the weather people need to stop talking about haze. So that's another thing to add to the message. Okay, Anne?
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on the comments that I made and Louise made. And I think it would be really interesting to have a conversation among what Louise called us as elders, with maybe a different kind of attitude, not wanting to polarize, but I forget the words you used, Louise. They were wonderful, like to create some space for, I just think we need to think about how we engage with the Prime Minister on climate issues. I think there's a real tendency to sort of, the temperature has been raised on everything, not just the woods, the forests, but on everything. And I just think there's a real need to think strategically and humanly about how we engage with the Prime Minister on climate issues. Louise spoke to it beautifully. And I'd love to see us have, just a conversation about that.
Okay. We'll add that certainly to the list. Thanks, Anne.
I just want to mention that we're considering asking people to register for the next meeting because we have trouble. It's okay. We have trouble, knowing who's attended and who hasn't, what locations are covered or not. If we do a registration, then we know, which locations are represented in the meeting, which ones we have to get in contact with afterwards. So we may do that next time around.
Yes, and it doesn't come with a fee. You just have to register. Is there anything else before we say we've covered the agenda? Okay, so those who want may certainly stay, and we'll for another few minutes. And those who don't wish to stay, thank you for coming, and stay safe and take care.